welcome back to the channel. It's been a while, it's been a couple of months probably, and I am back to do my top and bottom 10 movies of 2022. I'm going to separate them into two videos for you. I'm not going to spend a long time talking about them because I'm sure everyone's aware there's a plethora of these online at the moment, but I'm just obviously jumping on the bandwagon and giving you my choices. So I'll just run down them, give you a very brief synopsis if it's not a really well-known movie. If it's something that everyone knows, obviously I'm not going to talk too much about it. So I have a few special mentions that I want to get out of the way because positions 9 and 10 on the list were really hard to pick from this list. So the ones that didn't quite make it that I want to mention for the best list of the year are The Menu, which very well known horror movie, bit of a twist, Anna Taylor-Joy's in there. God's Crooked Lines, which is one I watched on Netflix very recently. It's a foreign movie. It's a mystery movie. I really enjoyed it. It was really engaging. You really need to concentrate, but I would suggest you check it out. I'm purposely not giving a lot of info about these because most of them maybe have a little bit of mystery about them, or just go into it blind. Avatar, The Shape of Water didn't quite meet the top 10. I think visually it was absolutely beautiful. I think the storyline in places was a little bit lacking, so it didn't quite meet the top 10. Vesper is in there because purely the actual environment, the world that's created in this. It's a sci-fi movie. The world is just absolutely amazing, somewhat like Pandora. It's not like Pandora, but I mean it's a different world. It's set in a dystopian future. We follow a young girl and her father. It's unlike anything I've seen in quite some time, so it didn't quite make the top 10, but do check it out. Brian and Charles. This one was originally brought to my attention by Jamie Powell. It's very British, it's very quintessential British humour. The actor that's in it does quite often work with Ricky Gervais, so that may give you an idea as to the kind of... If you enjoyed Derek, if you enjoyed Afterlife, it's just a nice movie, it's nice. If you like that kind of humour, check it out. And the last one on the special mentions is She Said, which is obviously very recent. It's the one about the whole Harvey Weinstein situation. Very well worth a watch. If you're not interested in the subject matter, you may be a bit bored. It is quite in depth into what happened, but I thought it's an important movie, so it's in my special mentions for the year. Okay, so the top 10 of 2022. We start at number 10 with one that probably quite a few of you won't be aware of. It's called The Swimmers. Now this is one that follows Yusra and Sarah Mardini. They are fleeing Syria and they're both quite talented swimmers, one of them more so than the other. It follows their journey, it's a true story. They try to escape Syria, follows everything that happens. There's a lot of highs and lows in it. They want to, or one of the girls in particular wants to swim for her country. They cross a sea in a dinghy. All sorts of things happen. I won't go into detail, but everything about what happened in this movie and everything that's represented is true. So yeah, The Swimmers comes in at number 10. At number 9 is a movie that I don't hear talked about often enough. It's The Outfit. Watched this earlier in the year. This follows, we have Mark Rylance is in this as the main star. He's a fantastic actor, I really like him. And he stars as a suit maker, but there is a lot of business going on around him that's not entirely legal, that's taken place in his little shop. And I don't want to tell you any more than that. There is a lot more to it. It's not as dull as it sounds. His performance is fantastic. It's a really nice hidden little gem. If you haven't seen it, check out The Outfit. That's my number 9. Number 8 is You Won't Be Alone. This is actually a Macedonian movie. I'm going to read you on IMDb all that it says about it, and I'm not going to tell you anymore. An isolated mountain village in 19th century Macedonia. A young girl is kidnapped and then transformed into a witch by an ancient spirit. I'm not going to tell you anymore. It's a really good movie. Again, it sort of transports you to a different place. I love the acting performances in this. I love the actual idea behind it and what happens in it, of which I'm going to tell you nothing. So if you haven't seen You Won't Be Alone, check it out. That's my number 8. Number 7, I don't need to go into any detail about, is Pearl. X, I should have mentioned in my special mentions, it hasn't quite hit the top 10, although it may appear in my top 10 horrors of the year. Pearl is my number 7, purely because I think Mia Goth's performance in Pearl far exceeds it in X. I like both movies. Everyone that I've heard mention Pearl has mentioned her 10-minute monologue, which as I was watching it, I can't quite understand how they can remember everything, how they can put the emotion into it with no one to bounce back off, with no one coming back at them with lines. I thought she was superb. Horror actresses, as we know, after the release of Hereditary, don't often get the awards when they should. That was a robbed one with Hereditary. Mia Goth definitely deserves something for her performance in Pearl, so that is my number 7. Number 6 is a genre I don't quite often watch, it has to be said, and that is All Quiet on the Western Front. This is a surprising one that popped onto Netflix this year, and every person I know that has seen it all love it, all think it's fantastic. It follows a young group of German soldiers as they travel from their hometown to the front line, what they're told, how they're lied to. We follow decisions that are made by people higher up that affect these young boys. Well, I say boys because they are boys, they're teenagers, and it follows them through the war. And it's a really riveting watch. And I like the fact we do follow the other side. We don't follow the Americans or the British, we follow the Germans. And it really gets across how these young boys were all exactly the same. You know, the guys in power are the bad guys. These young lads, these young soldiers are all in the same position. And it was just a really heartfelt, really well-made movie. And it made my number 6. So the top 5, there's going to be no surprises in this top 5 because I've seen so many people mention all of these movies. Number 5 is Maverick. The flight shots in that were just superb. Everyone thought they wouldn't get anywhere close to Top Gun. I will admit I still prefer Top Gun. I know a lot of people are saying they prefer Maverick. The aerial shots in Maverick are much better, admittedly, but there's just something special about Top Gun. I think you need to be old enough to have been there at the time. I've watched it way back when, but I can understand younger people preferring Maverick, but it made my number 5. Number 4 is one that may be quite surprising. It is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which I watched quite recently, and I just think it was stunningly beautiful. The craftsmanship, the stop motion animation, which is something that's been lost these days. There's also a little documentary on Netflix about the making of, where you can see the models, you can see how they did it, you can see how much work's gone into it, years, painstaking years of work these people have put into it. But it's not just a straightforward telling of Pinocchio. There are twists to it. Guillermo del Toro does, if you've seen his work, you will know he likes to include allusions to the war. We have that in it. He likes to sort of put across fascism. We've got that in it. You've seen, what's that movie called? The Devil's Backbone, Pan's Labyrinth. He does like to include aspects of war that he probably grew up through, experienced, and he wants to put that across in his work. So although it's suitable for kids, it's got a lot of dark content that adults will pick up on, and it's just a really beautiful retelling, so it has made my number 4. Number 3 is The Batman, and I'm surprised at that myself, but I feel Robert Pattinson, completely against anybody's expectations, really blew us out of the water with the movie. The Riddler was better, I have to say. The character, just everything about it, and anything that can make my son sit still and pay attention for over 3 hours has to be on to something good. So The Batman is my number 3 choice. My number 2 is the one that I expected to be at my number 1 all year, until when stuck in bed with COVID I watched my number 1. But my number 2 is The Northmen. The 3 movies that were at the top of my list all year were Maverick, The Batman, and The Northmen. I love all 3. The Northmen was filmed very close to where I live. That didn't sway it, believe it or not. I'm a bit obsessed this year with all things Viking because of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. We've been watching TV shows as well. Uhtred, whatever that's called. The Last Kingdom, is that it? Alexander Skarsgård's fantastic in it. Anya Taylor-Joy, again, fantastic as she is in everything. It's another really immersive thing. I like stories that put you there, that put you into a different environment than you're used to. I can't fault it. There's nothing I didn't like about it. I absolutely loved Ethan Hawke in it. But yeah, Northman is my number 2. And my number 1 movie of 2022 is one, as I say, I only saw in the last few weeks, and it is called RRR. It is on Netflix at the moment. The 3 R's stand for Rise, Roar, Revolt. All that I'll tell you is it says on IMDb, a fictitious story about 2 legendary revolutionaries and their journey away from home before they started fighting for their country in the 1920s. Now, bear with me as I tell you about this. I'm not going to tell you any story. This is a Hindi movie. We do have English in there. We have a language called Telugu, which I'd never actually heard of. This one is directed by S.H. Rajamouli. I'm not going to try and pronounce the actors' names because I would butcher them. This is one of the most over-the-top, far-out, ridiculous movies I've seen in a long time. But everything that I've said there makes it all the more awesome. There are some scenes, I watched Movie Worm do a review on this and he said he wants to do a video on his top 10 movie moments of the year. And he said he could easily pick 10 moments from this movie that were just so incredible. He could make an entire top 10 list just about this film. And that's so true. You will watch this open-mouthed in places, not quite believing what you're seeing, but loving it. The story is really, the characters are so well crafted, the story's really in depth. I never thought, there are Bollywood dances in this, there is some singing in this. Now that's going to put you off. Originally I would have thought it put me off, but so many people were saying you must watch this is incredible, so I did, and they were right. You must sit down and persevere. This movie opens with a young girl singing, and I'm thinking, oh god, I'm going to hate this, but if you persevere, it is incredible. I cannot think, some people will say, okay, it's a bit over the top. That wouldn't happen. It's amazing. It's a movie. We want to see sometimes things that won't really happen in real life, but the characters in this are fantastic. You think you feel one way about them, you'll change your mind. There isn't a weak link when it comes to acting. There isn't anything. This movie's, I think, 3 hours, 20 minutes. It's a long movie. It doesn't drag anywhere. I loved it. In the depths of miserable COVID, this really entertained me and completely lifted my mind for those 3 hours I watched it. So yeah, RRR is my favourite film of 2022, and I really would suggest that you go check it out if you haven't as yet. It's streaming on Netflix at the moment. So that's my top 10 movies of 2022. Thank you for watching. Let me know below what you thought of my choices, if there's any you're maybe surprised to see in there, or any that you're surprised to not see in there. I will be doing another video which will be up after this one on my not so favourite 10 movies of 2022. So thank you for watching, guys, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Over and out from Lisa Loves.